Hey everybody, this is Hybrid.
And this is Armen from Comic Book Cast, who you probably know.
Yeah, most likely. But anyways, this video is about Batman and not Nolan Batman, but Snyder. I guess we could call it Snyder
I,
Batman.
I pretty much think it's confirmed it's Snyder or Batman because he's helping write the script with Goyer.
Oh God.
Oh yeah.
No offense. All right, Snyder, very good visual director, but writing wise, not always
Sucker
his strong suit.
punch.
But yeah, like I guess just to quickly, to talk about his my opinion on Snyder. If you want to see a good representation of his directing, or like his visualness, I guess be a weird word for it, but watch Watchmen. Very
Uh,
visual film.
Watchmen, and I really like the visuals of Sucker Punch. I think it's a visually stunning movie, but the story and everything else is so crap. It just like melts your mind.
Yeah, I never saw Sucker Punch, but so I can't really talk about it. But
Mm.
I saw all of his other films he's done. So
His Dawn of the Dead remake was phenomenal, so he's definitely not a terrible director, but his writing is what's really to hold back.
yeah, like not everyone's made for writing, not everyone's made for directing. People need to go with their strong suit. But anyways, for this video, it's about what me and Armin we both feel that for this Batman or Batman versus Superman, Man of Steel sequel, whatever, the Batman they need to go for. And I don't know if you want to go first, Armin, or want me to
Okay,
go first.
my take is they're already bringing on Frank Miller to consult with it, which means, and they gave us that quote of when Batman defeated Superman.
Yeah,
They already, are very much stressing this Batman can beat Superman, which means he has to be a little bit into his career. Now, I did my video, and a lot of people agree with me. I think for like about 7 years now, I've been saying Carl Urban would make a good Batman, just because he has acting chops, and he's not the most muscular guy yet. But yet again, when I see Batman, I don't picture like a tower. I picture a
yeah,
guy who has muscle but that can move, and I think Carl Urban definitely has like a lean physique, which
yeah,
he can bulk up, which we saw in the movie Pathfinder. Now, my thing with him is like, if Batman's going to be on the level of Superman and be able to take him out, you can't have a Batman that's a year or two into his career. That doesn't make sense. You need to have a Batman that's established, that has detective work, that has a background of what's going on. So when he saw what's happening in Metropolis, he was already using his mind and everything, all the villains he's defeated, to formulate a plan. What happens when I cross paths with this guy? Because in the inevitable future, I will cross paths with him. And that's going to be my issue. No matter what happens with this Batman, if he's, the rumors are right now they're looking at a like 40-year-old. If that happens, we're going to already feel, treated badly because what villains has he defeated that we're not going to see on film? And how did he get to this point where he can defeat Superman at without establishing who he is. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, we already know who Batman is. We've seen his origin. I'm not saying we need his origin. We need the actor established as Batman so we can relate to him. Just throwing him into a Man of Steel movie by himself with no pre-establishing film, pre-establishing villains or cast of his own, just kind of doesn't sell me on the idea that, hey, look, 40-year-old Batman can defeat Superman who's brand new. It just kind of feels off to me. I feel they should literally just take it and make it a younger Batman. I don't think he should defeat Superman at this point, especially since this is going to be the sequel to Man of Steel. So, in his own sequel, he's getting, his ass kicked by this newcomer. I feel like everything they're saying about this movie so far is just everything is wrong. They're not taking the time to fix what was wrong with Man of Steel 1. Their whole fix is toss in Batman, who's a little more experienced, and make him kick Superman's ass. And I'm like, that's not how you do it. It's there's going to be a lot of comparisons drawn between the Avengers and this movie. Obviously, it's like, yeah, the Avengers fought each other, but we saw that they all kind of simmered down and agreed. They were all beating the hell out of each other, and for the same effect, Thor had to be massively downscaled. I mean,
yeah,
Thor was getting beat up by Iron Man. You go back and watch Thor 1, he literally kills 100 ice giants with no effort. So, there's going to be this balancing issue. And after what we saw in Man of Steel, now to balance down Superman to Batman's level, there better be the best explanation in the world if I'm going to believe, that that's going to happen. So, 40-year-old Batman, do it, but do it in a smart way. That's my take on it.
All right, so I'm kind of similar to your take, a little bit different, obviously, though. I'd say go for a mid-30s Batman. And, all right, so the way I agree with you, he should be experienced. He should be a veteran at his craft. I'd say at least 5 years.
Hmm.
Because he has to be young enough, I think, to appear in more movies, obviously.
Right.
But at the same time, young enough still to, like, he could be at his physical peak without worrying about him, going down later on. Because I think 40 is maybe a bit pushing it for
Hmm.
future like appearances. But I think your choice, Carl Urban, I think is a good choice. And after watching Dread, especially, he has that authoritative like tone in
Oh
his
yeah.
voice, and that's really important. Like I think Dread is a really good example to go by because really the only thing you see is like the chin,
Right. Exactly.
and same thing with
Now,
Batman,
you know,
his feet and stuff.
I will say, a lot of people are saying, oh, like Carl Urban is, he's 40 years old.
Yeah.
And, I understand what's going to happen. The same thing happened with Robert Downey Jr. He was cast when he was 41. Now he's 48 and he's getting all this money. He's getting old, for this role. That's kind of unfortunate, but it's like, I don't want to see some CW actor, pretty boy on there playing Batman. It's like, we need an actor that can help this. We need an actor that has a presence. So if they cast without his own movie, which is obviously what they're doing, we need an actor that has a semi-established fan base. If you throw some random, pretty boy in there to be Batman, a lot of people are gonna go, no, just because the franchise hasn't been established. That's like, imagine if like I don't know, they could cast, John Hamm. Everybody likes that guy. If they were to cast him as Batman or something, it's like, yeah, okay, that's Batman. That guy, he has age, he has experience in his face,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like Clark. In the movie, he didn't have that because one, that's what they were striving for, but two, because the Henry Cavill just wasn't a big name. I feel that they definitely have to cast someone with a little bit of cred and a little bit of history around Hollywood that can sell that. Oh, he's got experience in the real life, so I could believe him as Batman. That's just my personal take on it.
Yeah. I think like I know they have Frank Miller there, which to me, just like kind of you mentioned, it seemingly says they're gonna fight each other, which I'm not too keen
Right,
on the fact that they are kind of pushing that, which
right.
obviously, merchandise wise, that makes sense. They want to push that because people want to see that.
Oh
Even
yeah.
though I'm like, we've seen it tons of times in animated films and everything.
Right. It's
It's not
not
like with
only
Avengers. They didn't have that many Avengers films or like animated things at that time.
exactly
So when Avengers the film was being made, it was like a much more bigger deal than something like Batman Superman. It's been done so many times
right.
before. It's kind of not lackluster, but it's not as
It's a little underwhelming and a little
yeah,
underthought. That's
yeah. But I think they should take heavily from the Smallville Batman that was introduced in the season 11 comic. Because as even though people can say whatever they want about Smallville, I thought the way they did Batman was very well done. I don't know, you read it right,
yeah,
Detective?
yeah, of course.
The way they did Batman, like this was an experienced Batman. He was working in secret somewhat before Superman was even Superman. In Gotham City, he's a genius. He's a martial artist, all that stuff, intimidation, um, everything. He has the gadgets, all that stuff. But he was much more militaristic, which I actually did dig that kind of thing they introduced in him. But his suit it was able to emit different types of radiation, like red sunlight radiation, kryptonite radiation, if he wanted to, and he used that, especially the red sun radiation, to beat Superman
Yep.
because he studied Superman before. Like as soon as he was against Superman, he called out Superman. He's like, "That S on your chest, it's a symbol." He talked about the Kryptonians. Like he studied Superman, and that's the type of Batman we need. I
Yep.
think personally in the Man of Steel sequel.
Yep. Like I keep saying, it's all gonna come down to the experience. It's unfortunate that at San Diego Comic Con, last year when they're hyping up Man of Steel, a person asked Snyder who would win in a fight, and Snyder and Cavill both just look at each other and they laugh and they looked at the audience, being like, "Are you fucking retarded? Are you just stupid? Like we know who would win, right?" And
Yeah,
that was their exact response. And Snyder's even gone on record saying, "Well, Superman wins." And then they bring on freaking Frank Miller, who has made it a point in all his writings to say, no matter what, when I'm writing Batman and Superman, Superman will be beat to hell because I don't like the character at all.
Yeah, I really hope they don't do a big political undertone with
Oh, that's
this.
one thing I don't like about Frank. I don't like his work. Like, I know people love his Dark Knight Returns and all that. I do not like those. I don't like Frank Miller's writing or work.
Like, I enjoy it for what it is, which is a different universe story, all that stuff, another a writer's interpretation of the character. But I do feel like maybe when it was written, it worked because of the setting and all that stuff at the time period. But now, I don't think they could translate that. Like, I don't think they should try continuing that same exact message, especially when Superman. He's not the United States government's monkey. So,
Right, right.
but I don't know. They like you said, they cannot have a new Batman though. Not year one, not year two, not year zero, whatever they want to call it. This has to be an experienced veteran.
Yeah, this guy better be. He knows. He's got to know everything that's going on, and he's got to be. They really got to. I think the whole movie is going to hang on how is Batman portrayed. If he's portrayed as some young playboy kid who this is his first year as Batman, if he even touches Superman, I will walk out of the movie and grade it a 0. There's just no point to it. Like, this is. I understand, like they say, Avengers was the unfathomable movie. Like, you couldn't picture someone would make that just because of so much going into it, right?
Yeah,
And characters were sacrificed, like the Hulk. He had to be sacrificed to fit on screen because the Incredible Hulk version was overpowered. Like, that was Hulk, and then
yeah,
he
that
was
was
he was
intense.
toned down for the Avengers. That's really going to be where the crux of the problem comes out. You have to balance out a god and a man, and there's such a fine balance that in the comics you can do it, but the comics are that's a comic, obviously. You
Yeah,
have all these things at your disposal.
much different.
Right, and Batman's defeated Superman, yes, but who else has helped him? Multiple people, in the core world. So it's like if you follow the core comics, we have this fine line you have to walk, which honestly, when you bring on all these guys, and we know that Zack Snyder now has even said he has to do what Warner Brothers tells him. Like, he had freedom. He had a degree of freedom with Man of Steel because they trusted him. Unfortunately, this movie is being controlled by Warner Brothers because Legendary's added the pictures now, which Zack Snyder was at their hip. They got him to do Man of Steel. So, this movie is being fully backed by Warner Brothers themselves. They're now owned by Dune Studios, which is, this is where the money's going. Warner Brothers has more of a stake in it. Everything that's pointing to it is just saying, oh, God, God. And the last time we saw this happen was one, Green Lantern, when Warner Brothers did it, fully themselves. Two, Iron Man 2, because right after the buyout of, Marvel Studios, that
Yeah,
the first movie they produced was Iron Man 2, and that bombed so bad on a critical level and on a pacing level that they said we're not going to meddle in this again. So they are literally walking the tightest rope possible across the Grand Canyon, and just one mess up is going to make them fall, and that is just a scary thought. Because if this movie doesn't succeed, there's going to be no more DC comic movies. You're going to see Batman and Superman separately, and that's it. Like, we're never going to see anything else. So that's where my worry came from too. It's like you're rushing so fast into this, and obviously it wasn't thought out far in advance. Because if it was, they would have cast Batman and had some sort of cameo at the end.
yeah. Like honestly, I think especially with the whole news about the Flash being a TV show, that really shows me DC doesn't have faith in their characters for film
Yep.
besides Batman and Superman. And also, you made a good point. When has Batman one-on-one beat Superman? And even in the Dark Knight Returns, because a lot of fanboys, I say fanboys because they usually don't actually read the comics, they're just fans of the character and all that stuff. They don't seem to remember in the comics, Superman wasn't out there to kill Batman. Batman was out there to beat Superman to a pulp, but Superman was there the whole time telling Batman to stop. Like he was just letting Batman hit him. Like sure, when he hit Batman back, he wasn't out to like injure Batman at all.
Right.
Because if he wanted to, he could have just easily, threw Batman up into space or something.
Yep. Yep.
So people need to keep that in mind. And I hope in the Man of Steel, if by God, they fight and Batman is beating Superman to a pulp. I hope they do not play it out where Superman's actually trying.
Oh God.
Because in all of their fights, even when Superman's mind controlled, he's always resisted. So he's never been fully out there. I'm gonna hurt Batman or I'm gonna kill Batman. And in
Right.
the New 52, if I remember correctly, when Superman was actually somewhat at that point where he was like, mad at Batman when they first met or something in the Justice League comic, it took Green Lantern to help Batman like resist against Superman, and even then, Superman was about to kill Batman.
Yep.
And the only reason he didn't was because Superman at that, Superman doesn't kill and all that stuff. But still, it just showed how much more powerful Superman is than Batman.
Yep. Hands down.
I think that's actually really what it comes down to. The Batman they need is not Nolan Batman. They need comic book Batman.
Oh
The
yeah.
Batman
Hands
that
down.
knows every martial art in the world, knows like every math and science known to man and beyond.
He trained with the League of Assassins. Because, just because. I want the proper version.
Like yeah, they need the crazy psychopathic, like I can do anything I want Batman. They
Yep.
don't they can't have I only use one martial art in all my movies. I like yes, they can embrace the ninja aspect, which they should, because that is a part of Batman that he is very like known for at this time. But they need to embrace everything else about him.
I agree.
He needs to know like the martial arts that aren't even real.
Yep. And this brings up like the point I was saying. It's like if he is taking on Superman and he's 5 years into his career, you damn better well mention which villains he's faced. And if they say, oh, he's already defeated Killer Croc or Clayface or something, I'm gonna be like, so I don't get to see that on film. Then I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah,
So what ground do you tread? Has he defeated the Joker already? Because oh God, like where are you taking it from here?
like I just something as simple as like Clark Kent researching Batman, and they show the villains. Just something as simple as that would I wouldn't be fully pleased, obviously, as I would if they just made their own solo Batman movie to flesh out the character more.
Right.
But just something like that, that'd be better. And honestly, I just really actually dare I say this, I would be cool if Batman actually had a sidekick in this
Oh,
movie.
I would love it. Oh my God, I would love it if he had like Dick Grayson. He's only like a second year or something in. I would be so happy with that.
Yeah, because when you think about it, obviously the most obvious choice would be Bruce Wayne coming to Gotham with Lex Luthor, both of them jointly rebuilding Metropolis, all that stuff. That makes the most sense. Most people are
Yep,
thinking it's the route they're going to go.
that's got to be the route they go.
But it would make a lot of sense that we have Dick Grayson. Or, Bruce Wayne wouldn't just come alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, a lot of people haven't mentioned, like, if they're going to have Alfred in it at all.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing. Like, who's his Alfred? Does he have sidekicks? Who's his James Gordon? What does what does his Gotham look like? Is it a more, Tim Burton-y feel that feels more accurate to the comics, where it's like dark and it looks like, gangster times like it does in the comic books? Is it, more Nolan-like, where it's so realistic, you're just like bashed over the head with this isn't Batman? Like, which route are they going to take, And that's going to be the major thing, merging these two worlds into one, which that's a lot of problems within itself that I'm feeling like just contradict each other. And my biggest fear of this movie is the movie starts right,
Yeah.
and it's not going to go straight to Clark. We're not going to see the fallout. The first 20 minutes is going to be based on Batman defeating a villain or something to establish how badass he is. And then suddenly he's going to be like, oh, I'm done. Dick, you watch over Gotham while I go to Metropolis to meet this businessman. And then it's going to cut to all the stuff, which ineffectively unraveled the first 45 minutes of the movie to just being a Batman story when this should be the Man of Steel resolution of all his consequences. And
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed that we're basically not going to get that.
yeah, that's my main disappointment. We're not going to get that, going into this without a solo Batman film to establish him in this world. So either way, I want an older character. Cast someone 35 to 40 and get them a good contract. Don't do your revolving contracts, because those are the worst things ever that Warner Brothers does. So, sign someone to 6 movies and there you go.
Batman must use gadgets.
Must. Yeah.
There's no way.
How many times did Christian Bale use a batarang? Once in
I,
Batman Begins.
I was watching The Dark Knight Rises again, and I thought about the fact during the Bane fight scene, the one thing he throws is like smoke pellets.
You mean fucking
In the air.
poppers? Those little popper like freaking 4th of July things you buy and toss on the ground and go. Pff. He tosses
And I was
like
just
8 of
thinking,
those.
and I was thinking if this was comic book Batman, he'd be like, oh, there are tubes going to Bane's face. Batarang to the tubes. There you go.
Yep.
The
And
fight
you know,
would have been over right there.
that's the other thing. It's like Batman's obviously going to have seen the news reports and studied up, and what makes Superman weak was the Kryptonian atmosphere, right? So there's a lot of speculation going on. Kryptonite will be in this. It's going to be like categorized Kryptonian atmosphere after the explosion happened, which I'd be fine with that. So I expect Batman to have something Kryptonian on him that weakens Superman. Maybe it's like I don't know. Maybe when he's in the Fortress of Solitude for what it is in Man of Steel, when the robot hits him and he kind of gets hurt.
Yeah.
It seems like Kryptonian alloy can hurt him. So maybe Batman has some Kryptonian alloy in his suit that when he punches Superman, it weakens him. But still, they got to tread the line of he's got to be the greatest detective ever to figure all this out. Well, okay, never mind, because apparently you can just be some random woman with Google and Bing that you can find Superman. So Batman doesn't even have to be really smart at this point.
Now I'm thinking about it because the fact that he has to be the world's greatest detective in this film universe. He has to be the Batman.
Yep.
It's possible then because a lot of people are like the Fortress of Solitude got destroyed, but if I remember correctly, didn't the ship just crash? Because Zod was in it.
Yeah. I don't even remember. I think that's what happened.
So if I remember correctly, it's still possible he can have the fortress. Thus, it's possible in some way Batman could have taken one of those Kryptonian outfits.
Right.
And he could wear it as like kind of like Under Armour kind of.
Oh yeah.
It's possible, it makes sense that those would be really adorable too.
Yeah.
So for all we know, maybe Batman's suit will be comprised of like state of the art human tech and Kryptonian biosuit thing. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. Whatever they pull out of their ass, it better be good, and they better establish Batman as the best detective ever, right next to Lois Lane.
Oh God, make me sad. Because Lois Lane pretty much is the world's greatest detective at this point.
Yep.
The fact that she yells Clark several times at Superman in the movie, he makes no point to act different at all as Clark. Like, come on, a cop was at his house. He destroyed like 5 IHOPs.
And the Sears, not the Sears.
Yeah, it's like, what's up with the product placement? Like, for the Batman movie, I'm expecting like either at the Batcave if they show it, like some like I don't know who sponsors Warner Brothers.
Whoever can throw money at them.
All right, so Microsoft, Bing.
Oh,
Back
so the
to Bing.
Batcave is going to be IKEA?
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
Watch the Batarangs have like what's a toy company like Hasbro or something? It's like made in China on them. And they stop for a second, do an Ultimate Spider-Man like segue. Now available at Walmart.
Oh shit. Well, that was good. Anything more you got to add? Because I think I've added everything I needed to.
Yeah, I think between the both of us, we pretty much have said it all.
All right. Well,
Basically, not knowing Batman. There you go.
not knowing Batman, comic book Batman, done.